All right, we are joined by Matt Applebaum, offensive line coach for the Boston College Golden Eagles. And Matt actually has a connection with our guy, Clay Harbor. The two were together in Jacksonville in 2014. So we're bringing people together back here on the Charter Podcast. Matt and Clay. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Excited.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on, man. Do you remember the nickname that I used to have back in the day? What all the people used to call me back in Jacksonville? I mean, it wasn't even a nickname. It was really my first name. That's all they ever called me. It's just a quiz. See if you remember that.
I'll be honest. You're putting me on the spot. I don't remember.
No, it was just Claymaker. You know, it was like Coach Mid.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course,
So I always mess around with Alex and 𝗵ici𝗰𝗶𝘹, our other co-host, talk about my old nicknames with the Jaguars. But, man, appreciate you coming on and giving us some insight on our second-round draft pick, Ozzy Trapilo. Alex, I'll let you start us off with some questions for Matt.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, just first off, the first thing you notice about Ozzy is this guy is really big. 6'7", 6'8", something like that. And obviously you do not see many tackles that size. So I'm just curious, as a coach, what are you working with there to maximize that potential when you have a player who is that big playing the position, who can also move pretty well as an athlete, move out in space?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ozzy is unique in that he's got that kind of that height and length and frame, but can still bend and change directions pretty well and play with pretty good leverage. In recruiting a lot of these high school kids, they want to claim they're 6'7", 6'8", and usually they're exaggerating by 2 inches. And I always tell them, guys, if you really look at the NFL, there's really not that many tackles that are truly 6'7", 6'8" guys, because a lot of times when guys are that big, they can't play with any leverage and they can't anchor, and they usually can't change direction. So I think that's something that's unique about Ozzy, in that he is able to do those things at that size. And then obviously with that size allows for him to, carry his weight so well. I mean, I don't even think he's finished packing on size, to be honest with you. He probably could be even heavier as he gets into his NFL playing career. And yeah, I mean, that kind of size, you occupy a lot of space, you have length, you're able to set the depth of the pocket at different places. So, I mean, I think he uses his size to his advantage. I think one of his skills is just kind of knowing his own strengths and weaknesses and playing within his skill set. And but yeah, something unique about him is that he still can play with leverage and anchor, even though he's so big.
Yeah, Matt. So the big thing here in Chicago is, I don't know if you're familiar with the Bears roster, is they have Darnell Wright at right tackle. He was a first-round draft pick a couple years back, and he's done a great job at right tackle. I know Ozzy has a little bit of time his freshman year. He played 10 games at left tackle. So my question to you is, do you think Ozzy has the versatility to be able to move over to the left side? I know it's a little bit of a change, but do you think he has the ability to be able to move over to the left side and to play left tackle at a high level against NFL caliber defensive ends?
Yeah, I think he can do that for sure. So Ozzy actually played some guard. If you go all the way back to 2021, in 2 games he started at guard, I believe. And then in 2022, he was the full-time left tackle. And then in 23 and 24, he was the right tackle. So I'm a little bit familiar with what you guys have going on over there. Just, obviously when my guy got drafted there, I was, I did some digging, and now the algorithms on my Twitter think I'm a Chicago Bears fan, I think, because I get so much Bears news. But I know that that's a question that a lot of the fan base is asking, and, the media people are talking about. And I think he's capable of doing that. I do. I think he could play at a high level at that position, and I think he's played at a high level at that position. And I'm sure that the coaching staff there will figure it out. I got nothing but respect for the staff. I'm familiar with Coach Johnson. We're not super close or anything, but we know each other. And Coach Long, our offensive coordinator, is very close with him. And I think he's an excellent football coach. The proof's in the pudding there. Your offensive line coach has a great track record of putting together a great line. So whether Ozzy's a left tackle or the kid from Tennessee ends up being the left tackle and Ozzy's the right tackle. I know you got some other guys too, Braxton Jones, and I saw another name floating out there. Braxton's had a nice career up to this point. Like, you guys have done a great job of, or the team's done a great job of putting together a group of guys in the room that can compete, and you have depth and you have competition, and you'll figure, those guys will figure it out. I'm sure they will. But yeah, to answer your question in a short order, I do think Ozzy's capable of playing left tackle.
Now, Ozzy was telling us about that move from the left side to the right side and kind of alluded to the fact that part of the reason that move happened was to get him and Christian Mahogany playing next to each other on the same side. Christian Mahogany, obviously another NFL player. So I'm just curious, when those two guys were together at right guard and right tackle, what did it do for you? Why was that an important thing to point to and say, okay, if we get Christian Mahogany and Ozzy Trapilo playing next to each other at right tackle, this makes our team better?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that go into all those decisions. I wouldn't say it was that singular reason to play Ozzy next to Christian. We also had some other guys in the program that maybe were better suited for certain things. Guys that are still here now, like Logan Taylor, that played left tackle in 2023, and then Jude Bowery, who played left tackle for us this past season. So all of those things are part of the equation. It's not just one thing. And that's the same thing that the Bears are going to go through now with all these guys they have. But, having a guy like Christian and Ozzy next to each other, obviously that gives you a dominant run blocking side. It gives you a chance to double team guys a certain kind of way and kind of have a focal point for where you want the point of attack to be in the run game, no matter what the scheme, may be. So that's something that certainly gives you. There's a lot of factors. It's not always as simple as one thing or the other. But having Christian and Ozzy next to each other certainly gives you two dominant run blockers at the point of attack, and again, Ozzy's just capable of doing a lot of things. So, he was easily able to handle that adjustment.
Yeah. Coach, after the draft pick, obviously, I went and dug into some tape, and I got to tell you, I was really impressed with Ozzy, the way he moves, the way he finished. He seems like such a nice guy when you watch the press conference. Again, the field, he's got a little bit of that attitude to him. If you had to give a couple of strengths and then maybe a couple of weaknesses, not necessarily weaknesses, but things maybe Ozzy can improve on as he continues developing and growing into a football player, what would you say those are? Strengths and maybe a few things he can get better at as his progression continues.
Yeah, I think, strengths wise, you started off this conversation with his size. Again, we already kind of touched on that. That's an obvious strength. And, I think the thing about Ozzy is he's just such a consistent guy, and that's through all aspects of his life. And I do think that there's a correlation there between a guy's approach to all the different parts of his life actually translating to the field. But what you see from him is what you get. That's who he is every single day. So there's no peaks and valleys. He's consistent. Every play, he's going to give you what he's got. He knows his own strengths and weaknesses. He knows how to play within his skill set. I think that's something that is kind of rare for a younger player, to be perfectly honest with you. So he rarely puts himself in bad positions, bad body positions, or, just beating himself with things he can control. Very rare for that to happen. So he's able to use his size, his strength, and his intellect to put himself in good positions consistently. And then he strains the finish. I think he's a good run blocker, even with his, height, creating leverage problems at times. He works on that, and he's able to push through that. And he's been a very good run blocker at BC at the point of attack. And that's within all different schemes. We run, whether it be wide zone or tight zone or gap scheme or pin and pull, he can pull well. We really do all of those things, and he excelled at all of them. I actually think he's an excellent pass protector. He understands the idea of getting to a spot within his skill set and playing inside out. He knows when he has help, when he doesn't have help, and playing to those advantages. So much of the game and offensive line is played up here, and I think Ozzy really excels at that. In terms of weaknesses, he obviously doesn't have any big weaknesses, or he wouldn't have been so highly thought of as an NFL draft pick. So there's no real like obvious things like, oh man, like he just really needs to improve that. I think he'll continue to get stronger throughout his career. I think he'll actually get even bigger because he's so long that he can handle even more weight. Again, that's for the Bears to decide if that's what they want. But if that's what they want, I think he can do that. And just kind of, getting around great vets and learning the NFL game. Not that there's this drastic jump necessarily. I think that at BC with Coach O'Brien, like we have a program that really does prepare these guys for that level. But until you're there and you're doing it every day, that's what the NFL is all about. And I think he'll excel at that. I think he'll attach himself to the right people. I think he'll go about his business in the building like a pro from the jump. And the natural progression that comes with the reps at that level, he'll get that. And then he'll continue to improve.
Now, Ozzy, one of the things he told us when he first got drafted is basically, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get onto the field as fast as possible. And you mentioned it off, a little bit earlier that early in his career, he played a little bit of guard to get onto the field. And then he moved to right tackle to stay on the field, right? So I'm just wondering, beyond that stuff that, the positional versatility, what are some ways in which, as a coach, you notice this is a guy who is doing whatever it takes to, again, get on the field as soon as possible and then stay on the field?
I think he's always prepared. Like he prepares himself, whether that be the time he puts in outside the building or his ability to focus when he's in the building. God-given intellect obviously plays a part in that. But just he was prepared to play early. He worked at it. And he proved himself to the staff, and he proved himself to the other players. When you're going back to 21, you're a redshirt freshman, and all of a sudden you're starting against Florida State on a very veteran line. Like those guys believed he can go in and do that, even though maybe that wasn't his natural position, because he was going to be prepared for that moment. And that's what I think he'll prove to the Bears people, the front office and the coaching staff and his players. Very important to point that out. Like the players in the room, like he'll gain their trust through the way he handles his business every day. Like, you can't fake it. So like that, who he is, these guys will see who he is day in and day out, and he'll prove himself to those guys.
Coach, you might have already answered this one in the sense that you obviously mentioned that, he played in a system with Bill O'Brien. First question is, how quickly can Ozzy learn a playbook? Do you think he's a guy that'll be ready to go quickly? And then secondly, what type of a teammate is Ozzy? Is he more of a vocal guy? Is he more of a lead by example guy? Do you see him as a guy that's going to maybe try to be a leader, or obviously kind of fall in line behind a Joe Toney, a Darnell Wright type player? So, that's the question for you.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, I would put Ozzy's ability to learn a playbook at an extremely high level. I would put it at a level that would match any player I've ever coached. So just put it that simple. I mean, I've coached in the pros, I've coached in college. I've never been around a player that can necessarily learn the playbook at a faster or more detailed rate. There's no other guys that I would put in a similar category. But no
Coach,
one that
I don't know
would
if you remember back in the day. I'm teasing. Continue.
But no one that I would definitively put above him. I hold him on a high pedestal in that regard. I said it to every scout that would come through. He's like having a coach out there, kind of. You know what I mean? And what we do here schematically, and what we ask of these guys, particularly in the O-line room. Again, I would put that on the same level, if not higher, than any place that I've been. So he will be prepared to go in there and learn their stuff and learn it very quickly. And I think he'll be prepared to play from that perspective immediately, really. As it pertains to like who he as a teammate, I would say he's not necessarily like a guy that's going to get in front of the team and fire him up. That's not him. He's like a even keeled guy all the time. You know what I mean? So, and I think I touched on it earlier. Like he has good social awareness. Like he's not going to go in there and try to be a leader. He's a damn rookie. I mean, like he's not a what? You know what I mean? He's going to go attach himself to guys like you mentioned, like a Joe Toney, and be like, like teach me, what I need to know, and be around those guys, and at the same time be his own man. He's, like he'll do the things he's supposed to do as a rookie, both on and off the field. He'll be a team player in that regard, and he'll earn those guys' trust. And if there's any leadership from him, especially as a rookie, it would be lead by example. Like a good example would be this past season at 𝗵𝘀. He's going into year 5. He's a legacy guy from the jump with his father's history at 𝗵𝘀. He's a guy that's being talked about going in the first couple rounds of the NFL draft. He's already had an extremely productive career at 𝗵𝘀. Had tons of people trying to take him out of the program through the portal and all that kind of stuff. So you think about the picture I'm painting of who this guy is as a player within the program. A lot of guys that are in that position would maybe be unapproachable for young players. And yet, whenever we would have guys on campus, whether that be a visiting coaches or recruits or whatever, you could point to after practice Ozzy Trapilo working with some freshman lineman and trying to help that guy improve his skill set. So to me, that tells you what kind of guy he is and how he is on a day in, day out basis. That's really who he is. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Now, speaking about improving skill sets, you guys had another top 50 pick in Donovan Ezeiruaku. These guys, he's an edge rusher for our friends listening who might not be familiar with Ezeiruaku, edge rusher from Boston College. I imagine they repped quite a bit against each other in practice. So I'm curious, what are the ways in which, Ezeiruaku might have iron sharpened iron helped Ozzy improve his skill set? And then were there ways in which you saw Ozzy helping Donovan improve his skill set as well?
Yeah, I don't know if I can just point to one thing, this is one thing that Donovan helped Ozzy with and vice versa. But anytime you have good players of their caliber that are kind of at similar points in their career where they're playing their best football and they can go against each other and compete, play in and play out, that's going to lead to natural improvement for both guys. So that would be the shorthand answer to that question. Donovan's a hell of a player. Obviously, the NFL thought so. We were actually kind of expecting him to go in the first round. I think Dallas feels like they got a little bit of a steal on that, which is great for Dallas. I got friends over there with those guys on that staff, and I'm happy for him, and I'm happy for Donovan. I think Donovan's a great kid and a great player. We'll miss him here at 𝗵𝘀 for sure. But him going against Ozzy or him going against Jude or him going against Logan and, the other tackles like Kevin, those guys are improved players because they had to go against Donovan.
Personally, Coach, I want to say, when I'm watching Donovan Ezeiruaku just doing my draft prep, I look at his way as a tight end. I don't want to block that kid. Just an extensive bag of pass rush moves, hard-nosed player. Thought he was excellent. My question for you about Ozzy is, have you seen this guy throw the football? Have you seen him catch the football? Have you seen him maybe run the football? Because Ben Johnson's known for his trick plays. And do you think that there's any trick play ability that Ozzy's got stored away in his bag somewhere that he can maybe pull out fourth quarter against the Packers to beat our guy 𝗵𝘀𝘀 over there in Green Bay?
Well, I have seen Coach Johnson execute some of those plays at his previous employer. And I think that's pretty cool stuff. Especially as a line coach and a former lineman, you always want to see those guys get to enjoy that stuff. And if that happened for Ozzy, that would be an awesome moment for myself, honestly, as his former coach. And I'd be so excited for him. He's a good natural athlete. He played basketball in high school. Tell you how time flies. Not only do I remember being on the staff when you were playing, but just talking about Ozzy, I remember being at a basketball game when he was in high school. Now he's playing for the Bears 5 years later. It's oh my God, how did 5 years go by so fast? But he's a good athlete. He's a good athlete. He has good natural hands. I'm sure if that's something they want to do with him, that he will excel at it because he pretty much excels at everything he tries to do. So
amazing. Matt Applebaum, offensive line coach for the Boston College, the Boston College Golden Eagles. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us to share some insights on Ozzy Trapilo and 𝗬𝗎 𝗍𝗶. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, guys.